Imagine a conventional armored platoon. Massive steel plates, heavy tracks, and multi-million-dollar main battle tanks. They are designed to dominate the modern battlefield through sheer, unstoppable force. Now imagine throwing all of that protection away. In the brutal sandbox of military history, the British Special Air Service discovered a terrifying truth. Armor makes you slow. Armor makes you predictable. And in deep penetration warfare, predictability gets you killed. To beat the heavily armored divisions of their adversaries, the SAS didn't build a bigger tank. They did the exact opposite. They took a civilian utility vehicle, stripped it right down to its bare metal frame, and bolted on enough raw firepower to shred an entire mechanized column. This wasn't just a transport vehicle, it was a philosophy. A lethal, open-air apex predator that defied conventional military logic and humiliated traditional armored armor across 3 different wars. Before we look at how this thin-skinned machine managed to hunt down Scud missiles and outmaneuver heavy armor, do me a quick favor. Hit that subscribe button, smash the like, and drop a comment below, letting us know where in the world you are watching from. It really helps us keep bringing you these deep dives into the machines that reshaped modern warfare. Now let's go back to where this madness all began. The date is August 1942. The location, the unforgiving sands of the Libyan desert, just 300 meters south of a heavily guarded coastal highway. Out of the midnight gloom, a ghost fleet emerges. 25 American-made jeeps moving in 2 flawless parallel columns across the gravel. No headlights. No roaring engines, just the low mechanical hum of heavily loaded tires crushing stone. These vehicles looked like a scrap metal yard's worst nightmare. The windscreens were gone. The doors were ripped off. Every single non-essential piece of body shielding had been discarded to save weight. But what they lacked in steel, they made up for in pure, unadulterated venom. Every single jeep was bristling with dual Vickers K machine guns, capable of spitting out an astonishing 1,300 rounds per minute. Some crews had even clamped a 3rd heavy weapon directly to the dashboard. Behind the wheels sat Lieutenant Colonel David Sterling and 70 elite raiders of the early SAS. Their target? The heavily fortified Sidi Hanish airfield. To a conventional general, sending unarmored utility cars against a fortified base was suicide. But within 20 minutes of opening fire, the thesis was proven. Over 40 Axis aircraft, highly advanced Junkers transports, Messerschmitt fighters, and deadly Stuka dive bombers were reduced to melting piles of aluminum. The SAS column dissolved back into the endless desert before the Garrison could even spin up their anti-aircraft guns. They didn't lose a single man on the tarmac. That single night revolutionized mechanized doctrine. A tank column was too loud, it needed an army of mechanics. An air assault was too loud and too expensive. But a small group of highly trained men in a vehicle reduced to its absolute essentials could go anywhere, destroy anything, and vanish like smoke. For 40 years, the British military kept that lesson close to their chest. And in the mid-1980s, they decided it was time to build the ultimate evolution of Sterling's dream. Flash forward to the mid-1980s, the engineering bays of Hamble on the English south coast. Under strict, classified contracts for the regiment at Hereford, engineers were tasked with replacing the aging Series 2 Pink Panthers that had served since the late 60s. The old trucks were exhausted. Their leaf springs were sagging under the impossible loads of desert operations, and their tiny 2.5-liter engines were choking in the heat. The SAS demanded a machine that defied physics. It had to carry 4 fully geared operators, weeks of rations, hundreds of gallons of water, specialized communications gear, and heavy ammunition. It had to survive 3 weeks behind hostile lines without a single drop of outside resupply. And to top it all off, it had to fit perfectly sighted the belly of a Royal Air Force Chinook helicopter. The result was the legendary truck utility SAS 4x4 Land Rover 110 V8 Heavy Duty. To the guys who rode it into battle, it was simply known as the Pinky. The base of this beast was a heavy-duty Devondran 10 chassis, fitted with advanced coil spring suspension and a roaring 3.5-liter Rover V8 petrol engine. Now, the V8 was thirsty, but it provided the explosive low-end torque required to pull 4 men and thousands of pounds of combat gear out of suffocating sand dunes at a moment's notice. The engineers threw 2 massive fuel tanks directly underneath the front seats. It was a design choice that the operators who sat right above hundreds of liters of highly volatile fuel while taking incoming tracer rounds, regarded with a heavy dose of dark SAS humor. Just like Sterling's wee jeeps, the roof was thrown away, the doors were discarded, the windscreen was deleted. Instead, they installed a massive heavy-duty roll cage and a front-mounted electric winch rated for nearly 9,000 pounds of pulling power. They fitted massive 9x16-inch tires to distribute the immense weight across soft ground. But it was the weapons array that truly turned this truck into an anti-tank platform. There was no standard layout because the SAS built each vehicle specifically for the mission. Typically, the commander in the front seat manned a 7.62mm general-purpose machine gun, but the rear heavy ring mount was where things got devastating. It could host a legendary 50-caliber Browning heavy machine gun, a Mark 19 40mm automatic grenade launcher, or crucially for fighting armored platoons, a heavy Milan anti-tank guided missile system. Throw in a 5.56mm light machine gun clamped directly to the dashboard for the driver, a couple of 81mm mortars packed into the back, and a crate of anti-tank bar mines, and this unarmored truck suddenly possessed more raw, destructive firepower than an entire conventional infantry section. February 1991, the frozen windswept plains of the Al Anbar Desert in western Iraq. The coalition forces had a massive problem. Saddam Hussein's military was moving highly mobile, elusive Scud missile launchers along the desert highways at night, launching devastating ballistic strikes before disappearing. Fixed-wing aircraft couldn't spot them through the camouflage net systems. Heavy armor divisions didn't have the range or the stealth to catch them. Enter the Pinkies. And D squadrons infiltrated deep into Iraqi territory, operating in fighting columns of up to 12 Land Rovers backed by heavy Unimog supply trucks. They slept under camo nets by day and hunted by night. The ultimate test of their anti-armor capability came during a legendary engagement known as Victor II. An SAS column, led by Regimental Sergeant Major Peter Ratcliffe, stumbled upon a heavily fortified Iraqi strategic communications array. The facility was guarded by several hundred heavily armed, dug-in Iraqi soldiers supported by light armored vehicles. The SAS had fewer than 45 men in their open-air Land Rovers. Conventional doctrine says you retreat. Ratcliffe decided to attack. The Pinkies split into two elements, a devastating fire support base and a high-speed assault team. When they opened fire, the sheer volume of metal was catastrophic. The .50 caliber Brownings tore through the Iraqi defensive walls. The Milan anti-tank missiles vaporized the armored outposts before they could even traverse their turrets. The heavy firepower pinned hundreds of soldiers in place while the SAS assault teams swept through the facility, completely demolishing the strategic microwave array. The entire engagement was over in minutes. The Pinkies melted back into the dark desert before a response force could even be scrambled. To prove just how vital these vehicles were, look no further than the tragic fate of the Bravo 20 patrol during that same campaign. That famous 8-man foot patrol chose to deploy without their Pinky Land Rovers. Trapped without mobility or heavy firepower, 3 men were killed, 4 were captured, and only 1 escaped. Meanwhile, their sister patrols, Bravo 13 and Bravo 30, took their V8 Land Rovers into the exact same terrain. When they were compromised, the overwhelming firepower of their mounted weapons allowed them to break contact against massive armored forces and ride back to safety with their crews completely intact. If you think the Pinky was just a desert pony, you're dead wrong. From 1994 to 1999, D&E squadrons deployed these exact same unarmored trucks into the dense, hostile environments of Bosnia and Kosovo. Operating far ahead of the main United Nations peacekeeping forces, the Pinkies navigated mined mountain passes and hostile checkpoints. During Operation Tango in 1997, SAS operators utilizing these highly agile vehicles slipped deep into northwest Bosnia to snatch high-profile war criminals, extracting them across international borders before local militias even realized they were gone. Then came November 2001, the Registan Desert of southern Afghanistan. In what would become the largest regimental vehicle assault since World War II, a massive fleet of over 40 Pinkies drove straight out of the rear ramps of 6 C-130 transport aircraft onto a pitch-black makeshift airstrip. Their objective, a massive fortified Al-Qaeda training base located over 130 miles away through brutal unmapped terrain. It was a high-risk daylight raid across wide-open ground with absolutely zero natural cover. but the Pinkies formed a massive, terrifying arrowhead formation. G Squadron's heavy weapons vehicles laid down an impenetrable wall of 81mm mortar fire and .50 caliber rounds, while A Squadron swept through the compound. The entire enemy base was neutralized, and the columns returned to their aircraft in under 24 hours. It was the exact same tactical blueprint David Sterling had drawn up 60 years prior. Even the greatest war machines eventually face an enemy they cannot outrun: time. By the mid-2000s, the battlefield had fundamentally changed. The rise of sophisticated, hidden, improvised explosive devices and shape-charge roadside mines meant that an open-air, completely unarmored vehicle was becoming a rolling death trap in prolonged counterinsurgency campaigns. The ultimate evolution of the open mobility concept eventually shifted to heavier, blast-protected platforms like the Supercat Jackal. Even the U.S. Army Rangers, who loved the design so much they bought 60 custom versions called the Ranger Special Operations Vehicle, had to quietly retire them as the threat of IEDs escalated. Today, a few rare survivors of the original Pinky fleet rest quietly in military museums across the United Kingdom, scarred with the dents and weld marks of secret operations across Africa, Oman, and Iraq. To a conventional military strategist, a truck with no armor, exposed fuel tanks, and an open roof makes absolutely no sense. But the Pinky proved that true battlefield dominance isn't about hiding behind inches of steel plate. It's about unmatched reach, terrifying speed, and having the courage to carry the fight directly to the enemy's doorstep. What do you think? Would you ride one of these unarmored beasts into a modern combat zone? Let me know in the comments below. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more untold military history, and we will see you in the next video.